I get tested
They do it at the county health
And she
department.
basically says that,
Or there's another place too,
basically
with the
says
ashtray.
too. So can I go get tested?
basically says the study ain't gonna do her no difference, because she's already been way ahead of the game. So, I mean, she's done a good job.
What do you mean?
5 days a year.
She's got 8 basic things she goes off of.
Obviously, first off,
Yeah.
if I can go to Little Friday, I'll have to wear a mask, you know?
Butch getting hay
You're not
down.
going to Little Rock this weekend.
I
I
know.
got about 100 acres got wet.
So we got a 15-day period where
Start plucking it in the morning, tomorrow.
September, just like, just a little bit having this, hay move, so then I can.
Mhm.
So can I get taken out of school?
See it? We'll have to talk about that. Just not right now.
Trips to the old, too far around Main, please.
Yeah.
So, it was nice up there. It was a little cool. Didn't take the rain. I was going to the gym in the dark at 6 o'clock in the morning, with shorts and a t-shirt. It was chilly. 56, 50.
Hey, what are you doing?
I made a note.
MLK in Hollywood. Can you text me that spreadsheet that you were showing me the other day about the budget? You got that anywhere?
Been here 7 years in a row at this thing.
Wow.
Okay, well, I'm sitting in
I
here.
know we've been up there quite often. I didn't realize it was 7 years.
Yeah.
Great. I sound like playing, man.
They can pay whatever. It won't look good on the county, it won't look good on
Well,
us, so.
Only very easy on the living.
No, it won't. So my thing is, if we're gonna do that, there needs to be a caveat.
Studied the changes.
If we're gonna increase of 5%, then it's $100,000. It's fun. You see what I'm saying? It's 3% cost of living, and then you can't.
We need to give the ones about 50,000 that, and we'll give the others that.
I know what you're saying.
Okay. I just wanted to run that to you first before I make mention of anything.
I've got roads, I've got county roads. Bring it up. Good.
And I've tried to.
We've had situations in the past, saying people that were earning money didn't deserve it. Coming way in the past, where the highest paid individual in the county wasn't the county back in the day. The highest paid individual employee that worked for the county actually worked for the county.
It wasn't the judge.
I think he was the chief of staff. I probably would have run for county judge, judge Williams, we didn't. Went down there, took the court office. His Roger, good man.
But that's just not right.
People really rolled their eyes about that paycheck,
I would too.
but he earned it.
Yeah. But then come and do it legitimately.
Yeah. Well, I don't pray for him.
Okay, just we're gonna check with you first.
There's a man with the plan.
That's everybody.
Good, how you doing?
Wow.
Yeah.
So don't stir it up.
Happy birthday to the First Lady of District 1.
Thank you.
Pass it on.
Birthday card.
We're getting close. Miss Patty, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Still got a minute.
Hmm?
Surgery helped you.
It did a bunch, but today has been horrible. I mean, horrible. I don't know why.
Just purely allergies.
Today it's just been, that's the first time I've had any trouble
Professional services.
since I've done it, really.
3009.
It's been horrible today.
Painful, or you just stopped?
No, I ain't even stopped up. It's just like somebody's tickling my nose with a Q-tip. I don't know what the heck the deal is.
Are you sure it's not like a feather or something like that?
That's what it feels like, but it's been all day. I've been sneezing all day.
You ready to take this fiscal, see?
No.
Well, yes, but I don't know if we're on.
Roger, can we?
We are, Lee. It's after 6.
Yeah. Can you get the one? Hello? I don't
Yes.
hear anyone.
You're ready to go.
Anybody out there? The voice.
Right here.
Yeah, we can hear you. You're ready to go, JP
Want me to
Harbison.
exit?
Well,
You want me to be the IT guy?
yes. Where's our IT guy?
Patrick, you're a computer whiz.
Yeah, that's.
JP Harbison, can you hear me? JP Harbison, can you hear me?
That's control.
Are we ready?
Sydney, are we on?
Yeah.
Okay, we're on.
Okay.
This is.
Call, to order, and welcome everyone to the Finance and Budget Committee for September the 24th. Our pledge, prayer and pledge tonight will be led by Lisa Eddy.
Before we start, I want us to remember Richard McConnell. He was a Washington County employee who passed away. And it was brought to my attention by J.P. Lemming, and it's always hard when we lose a family member. So during our prayer, please think of him and uphold his wife and his family. Now, will you join me in prayer? Heavenly Father, King of the universe, we just so honor you as being our God and our Creator and ruler over all things. I lift up Richard McConnell's family to you, and I ask that you would comfort him, comfort them with your love and your peace and your assurance. I ask for your blessing as we preside over the budget and finance. I ask for your peace to rule in our hearts, your wisdom to crown us as we make decisions. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Miss Patty, will you please call the roll? Miss Patty, will you please call the roll?
Susan Cunningham,
Okay,
JP Harbison, can you hear me?
Hello?
We can't hear him. I can
We
hear him.
can't-
We can't
can
hear
you
Miss
hear?
I can hear her talking through some other speaker, but I don't hear her here.
okay.
Probably hear him.
Patty, okay, Butch, will you check the control room there and tell them we can't hear anything?
This still on the screen says we're muted.
Yeah.
Well, we should be all unmuted.
Well, it's got a big X over the speaker.
He's working on it.
He's not in there?
He's working on it.
Oh, okay. Tony's working on the computer situation.
Okay. Break time.
Right, okay.
So you're not able to hear them?
Correct.
We can't hear anything. Did she call the roll?
Echo.
Testing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Miss Patty, will you please call the roll?
Susan Cunningham,
Here.
Patrick Deakins,
Here.
Sam Duncan,
Here.
Lisa Ecke,
Here.
Ann Harbison,
Here.
Suki Hires,
Here.
Andrea Jenkins,
Here.
Lance Johnson,
Here.
Willie Lemming,
Present.
Eva Madison,
Here.
Sue Madison,
Here.
Butch Pond, Derek Thomas, Chandra Washington,
Here.
Judith Yanez.
Here.
JP Harbison, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda? All right, J.P. Deakins?
Second.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Chairman Harbison.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
Deakins.
well, J.P. Deakins had his hand up first. Yes.
I have an item I'd like to add to the agenda. Circuit Clerk Sylvester would like to discuss possible renovation in his office tonight, give us an overview of that, and I would like to add that to agenda.
Okay, so that will be, item number 5. All right,
Need a second?
J.P. Sue Madison.
thank you, Madam Chair. I have just sent you all an email requesting that our County Services Committee immediately investigate the county operations at the Winslow Dirt Pit southeast of Brentwood.
Thank you.
That's the only
What'd you
comment.
say?
Could you say that again?
Could you repeat that? I didn't hear it.
Sure, Okay, let me know if you can hear me now. I've just sent all the JPs, the judge and other folks an email requesting that Washington County's Services Committee immediately investigate the county operations at the Winslow Dirt Pit southeast of Brentwood. And I didn't want to bring it up today, except to just ask that that investigation be done by the appropriate committee, which is of course County Services. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madison. All right, we have an addition to the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda? J.P. Fleming.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have, a second, to the adoption of the agenda. All those in favor of the agenda adoption say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, we're ready to move on now. Tonight, we have, a motion on the floor, and a second to that motion, and it was postponed until tonight. I'm gonna let, J.P. Sam Duncan explain, his ordinance, for the budget.
Thank you, members of the court. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have had this ordinance out for a week now. I know it was emailed out with the adjustments following our meeting last Tuesday. After reviewing the ordinance in more detail, I do think there are some opportunities to fine tune still and make a few additional changes to get this thing perfectly right. So with that, I have additional amendments to be made. In order to follow with rules and regulations, obviously I have to do that now, and then I want to give people time to be able to review those. So the first thing, I know there were questions at the last meeting about the $500,000 emergency fund. I do want to remind everyone that in your budget packets, on the first page was a letter from the judge, and the second request he made was around increasing his county emergency fund by $425,000 up to $500,000. So it previously was a budget of $75,000. Adding $425,000 brings it up to $500,000. So I had a lot of questions around the $500K from actually members of the public, and so I wanted to make that clear that I didn't just come up with that number out of thin air. That was actually in the judge's request originally. I am moving that we strike that from the ordinance, but do want to say the reasoning for that. The reasoning for that is the judge actually had to go around with other elected officials and find money in different budgets beyond the $75,000 that he had in emergency funding. And by doing that, he is now going to have reimbursement, and that will come from the CARES funding, but it's going to take 35 ordinances, 35-ish plus ordinances, to properly reimburse those funds from all across the county. So by us having an emergency fund that could help adequately, if another, say, pandemic were to happen, we would have the ability to go fund that without having to go and get creative and pull from all these different areas. So I do want to say thank you to the electeds for being creative and finding money in different budgets and finding ways to fund this. It's in excess of $600,000 at this point. They went and found that money. So great job to our elected officials for doing that. Again, I'm asking that we take the $500,000 out of the ordinance and we take that request off the table. Separate from that, I've had many discussions this week with our comptroller, Shannon Worthen, and with our county attorney, Brian Lester, to make other adjustments to the budget. A lot of that, or to the ordinance rather, a lot of that is around fine tuning the percentages and taking those out to another decimal place. But I would ask, Madam Chair, if you would allow it, if I could have our county attorney and also have our comptroller explain some of those changes to the budget as they can give those in detail.
Okay,
Point of order, Madam Chair.
who do we want first? Shannon Worthen, our controller,
JP Harbison, JP Harbison, JP Eva Madison's made a point of order.
Oh, I didn't, okay.
There has to be maybe a point of information. There has to be some way for those of us on Zoom to see these amendments. I mean, we cannot consider an amendment without being able to see it and with it being scrolled in front of us. We can't discuss something we can't see. We're back to exactly where we were a week ago.
I'll,
So we've
if
got
I
to,
can address that, JP Madison, I understand where you're coming from, but just so all of you know, you commonly make amendments to ordinances verbally that we write down without everybody getting a
but
copy
not
of
that
it.
we
So
don't
just to point that
have,
out.
not that we can't see. I mean, people have this, I'm guessing the people that are there have it in front of them.
No, we do.
Right.
We have the ordinance as amended from the previous budget meeting, but not the new amendments.
So why
We're
couldn't
right
these
in
amendments
fact,
have been provided to everyone before we were talking about them? Because my understanding is they've been circulating for 2 days.
No.
But your understanding is incorrect.
Well,
As the person that writes the ordinances, JP Harbison, I can tell you that these amendments have not been circulating for days, as I've not even seen them. So that's my
somebody's
information on
been
that.
circulating them because other elected officials.
Excuse me,
You good?
our plans tonight are to make the amendments and not take any action on this ordinance so that people have time to look at the amendments and come back on September the 29th, then enact on the ordinance. So you'll have plenty of time to look at them and make any corrections if you want to. All right, do you have any other comments, Brian Lester?
Well, JP Eva Madison and JP Sue Madison both have their hand raised requesting to speak.
Okay, which one's first? JP Sue Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I continue to be amazed how we have an ordinance that has not been seen by a committee other than this one last month that continues to have 8 co-sponsors. I'm sort of flabbergasted about how that happens, and it seems totally out of order.
Thanks for your comments. JP Eva Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the question that I need to understand about this ordinance, the question I've spoken to many of the affected departments, is my understanding with the way the ordinance was drafted originally was that there was like an amount cited that budget. And then if there was excess from what was requested versus what we were willing to budget, that excess would be divvied up into the percentages. But the way this latest draft reads, it sounds like we're actually taking the whole general fund pot of money and divvying it up into percentages, which many of these departments, the percentages that they're being given are going to require them to cut their staff in half. And so I need to have some understanding of what these percentages mean and what their logic was, because this.
Our controller, Shannon Morgan, is going to explain it. Shannon, you have the floor. Shannon, can you hear us?
JP Harbison, I may need to give him, let me see if we can get him where he can speak. Bear with me for just a sec. Okay, Shannon, if you can unmute, you should be able to speak.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Set up the.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My part has just been to try to calculate the percentages according to the 2021 requested budgets. And then it's y'all's decision how to use those percentages. The way I calculated percentages was just taking the judge's catch-all budgets for ambulance service and those other budgets that he doesn't have any control over out of the total. And the total after the judges has removed his request for the 500,000 emergency fund leaves 33,294,202. And then these catch-all budgets of the judges totals 3,244,780, leaving 30,049,422 left. And then I just use that as the 100% amount. And then gave each elected official their percentage of based on what they requested. And that's how I came up with the percentages. But as far as what y'all intend to do in the ordinance, whether you're going to use those percentages to do cuts if there's any needed to get to the required reserves, that's up to y'all. But that's just how I thought was the fairest way to do the percentages. And so that's the only input I have.
Okay,
I'm still confused. So is the note,
just a minute, JP, Eva Madison.
so the notion is that if a budget is given 2.5%, it's 2.5% of what we're saying we're budgeting. And then if that requires them to cut personnel, that's just what we decided?
No, I don't. Brian,
I mean, there are a lot of these budgets that this is considerably digging into their budgets and will require layoffs.
Not necessarily.
I don't think so, but we'll see.
Well, somebody
Okay.
needs to actually put the math out for us to understand.
We are trying to do that,
And
Madison. Brian Lester, will you please?
How do I get muted when I have the floor?
You do not have the floor is the problem when it is very hard to do this for me as the parliamentarian when all of you are separate like that. But when the
it's
chair
really
starts
hard to
talking, you
speak
don't
when
have
you
the
act
floor.
like the chair. I had
Well,
the floor.
I
The
have been
chair was
asked to
engaging
I have-
with me. We need to see what these percentages amount to.
Madison, please give people the opportunity to explain this. You have
Well,
the
it's
floor.
explained and it doesn't make sense.
Brian, would you go on and explain your part of this budget?
Yes,
JP
ma'am.
Duncan to do this.
So what JP Duncan has asked, or what the issue that was, or the idea that was brought to me in drafting the first ordinance, was a way to go in and set the county unappropriated reserve at a certain amount, and then to look at what's left after that of all the things that the quorum court actually has the power to control. There's a lot of things in our budgets that I kind of act as a pass-through conduit. There are certain things that the quorum court does not control the money. For example, the law library. The quorum court does not have the ability to take any of that money and save it up for the general fund. The same with the road department and with the jail, as well as the library system, 911. There are several different things within your budget that is you just appropriate the money, and it's based on the projected amount of earmarked specific tax money that would come into that budget. And so what JP Duncan asked was for an ordinance that would allow the quorum court to set an unappropriated reserve, and then after that have money that was remaining and divided up amongst the elected officials. And in doing so, because there's so many moving pieces, it's a very difficult process to kind of get all of this figured out. And so the percentages that have been out there, I do not believe have been completely correct. And up until the comptroller came in today with some percentages that I actually saw for the first time, I don't think those numbers were correct. So I think all the rumors and the talk that's been going on is not completely accurate because the numbers haven't been accurate. But ultimately what JP Duncan was asking was that the quorum court divvy up the money that it wants to divvy up for the year after it decides what it wants to save. And that was the ordinance that we put forward. And that ordinance clearly needs some more tweaking based on some conversations that I've had today. And so that's kind of what we were looking at. And it wasn't the numbers and the projections were based off of what the elected officials had asked for this year. and not an average, because those numbers were quite a bit different. So that was the ordinance, or the idea behind the ordinance that was put forward. And now you can all now make the decision on that. Thank you, JP Harbison.
Thank you. JP Duncan, do you have any other, amendments to make?
No, that's essentially it. So the amendments will show different percentages, and it's a different pot of, the total sum is gonna be different because you're adding back in the 500,000, that was in the original ordinance, and actually in the amended ordinance for the judge's emergency fund. So that money also goes back in, and so it changes the ordinance from a percentage standpoint. So I understand people are doing the math and going, some of this doesn't make sense. I agree, that's why we're making changes. So I have asked that, as I've worked with comptroller, I've worked with the county attorney, that we get a fresh amended ordinance out to the court. And obviously I want everyone to have adequate time to review that. So therefore, Madam Chair, I move to table this to the next meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee. And that'll allow the county attorney to get out a fresh ordinance, everyone to get to officially review a much cleaner, much better version. And hopefully third time's the charm, we can finally vote on this thing at the next meeting and actually start the budget process with savings in mind first, and then we spend. That's the whole goal with this, is to start with savings and then go for spending. So.
Okay, JP Ecky.
I'd like for us to probably not table this because.
JP Harbison, if I may interrupt, a motion to table is not debatable. And so this is not a debatable motion. So a motion's been made and
Not been seconded.
Here a second.
I'll second it.
It's not debatable then, so,
We need a
all those in favor of tabling this to the September 29th, that will be our next meeting. All right. Ms. Patty, would you please call the roll? Table this motion.
Judith Yanez,
Yes.
Patrick Deakins,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
yes.
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Shonda Washington,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins,
Yes.
Suki Hires,
Yes.
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Willie Lemming,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Susan Cunningham,
Yes.
Derek Thomas, JP Harbison. This passes.
Thank you. Okay, so we will take this up on September the 29th. I think it's next Tuesday. All right, now we have another item on the agenda tonight, and that is, our circuit clerk, Kyle Sylvester. Kyle, are you there?
I'm working to get him pulled.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. It worked. Fantastic. This is just kind of I know that what I'm going to ask is going to have to go before the quorum court, but I wanted to talk to the Budget and Finance Committee first because I thought that was appropriate. As you all saw in my projected budget for next year, I had budgeted some money to start a renovation process in the circuit clerk's office to kind of be more consistent with our workflow. And having some conversations with some other elected officials, it came to my attention that it's possible that we could, since a lot of the construction would be due to the pandemic, that we could actually start it this year and possibly get reimbursed for it. So what I wanted to bring before the Budget and Finance Committee and what I want to ask the quorum court if that is an acceptable idea. Now, I don't know whether or not it's guaranteed that we'll get reimbursed for it, but it's worth a shot. And I think that what the court would have to approve is to move money into my capital outlay so that we could pay for the construction process. I've had some people come in and look at what we've lined out, and I don't have a bid yet. I mean, I don't have an estimate yet. So I'm kind of in the dark on that. Hopefully I'll get one real soon. And that's kind of it. I just wanted to bring that before the Budget and Finance Committee and get your thoughts on that process. And if that would be acceptable, then I would ask the full quorum court for permission to be able to move funds into my capital outlay line item.
J.P. Lemming.
What kind of money you thinking on renovation? What are we talking here?
JP Lemming, I don't know. I don't know much about construction. For next year's budget, I had budgeted 50,000. The previous year for that, I budgeted 100,000 to do the whole office. Right now, I'm just looking at the front because that's where most of the staff is. And that would be erecting a few half walls and putting glass in so that my staff will be safe. And I mean, this is a long time coming. You know, it's not necessarily, I mean, the pandemic kind of pushed it over the edge, but I think that being able to adjust the workflow by changing the logistics of the office is going to help a lot. But I think safety has a lot to do with it too, to create some separation between the public and my staff. But as far as an estimate, JP Lemming, I really don't know.
Okay, J.P. Deakins.
I just want to clarify for the members of the court that when Circuit Clerk Sylvester brought this to me earlier in the week, I said, well, let's discuss it in our Finance and Budget Committee meeting. There's a timing issue here where we might have to take action at the next regular quorum court meeting. And I wanted to go ahead and introduce this to you guys so you could start thinking about it before having this brought to the meeting kind of cold on us. So I think there's an opportunity here to get this reimbursed to the CARES Act dollars. Like I said, it's a timing issue. We need to do that by the end of the year, this renovation, to make it eligible, from my understanding, for those dollars, and that's why we're bringing it up tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm not sure whether we need a motion to send it on to quorum court. We don't have another budget meeting before the October.
Correct. I just wanted to clarify that there's still a lot of open questions, but we hope to get those answered in the next couple of weeks so that we can all have that information. But I just wanted us to start thinking about it right now. I don't think there's any action needed tonight.
Right,
Madam Chair?
Who's speaking?
I believe that's Circuit Clerk.
Yes.
So on the Arkansas Association of Counties statewide call today, they were talking a lot about the CARES Act, and I believe that Chris Valines talked about the deadlines for submitting these, and he said the first deadline is in October, and then I think the final deadline is somewhere near the end of November, maybe the first part of December, to get those requests in. I didn't get a chance to talk to him after the phone call today, but that was the only caveat that I looked at today that I thought, well, maybe we don't have enough time. But I would still, like input from the court as to whether or not, you guys feel comfortable with moving funds and starting that project and being able to possibly get reimbursed through the CARES Act.
In all probability, we probably will be reimbursed if we get all of our paperwork in on time. So, any other comments? Thank you, Circuit Clerk. We appreciate everything you do. All right.
JP Harbison.
Yeah.
JP Eva Madison would like to be recognized to speak.
All right. J.P. Eva Madison to recognize.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions generally of our chair about the budget process, if I may. the first question is that the $500,000, or I guess the $425,000 that was referenced that the judge pulled from other budgets. I would like to have information on that and how that money was moved. And then for us to see where there might have been, where we had that much slack in our budgets. I think that's relevant for budgeting purposes. And then my second question is, I'm a little confused when we're talking about deciding about the general fund, and we talk about the sheriff, and we talk about the county judge. And if you look in our budget book, sheriff has the law enforcement budgets and then his related budgets, and then he has the jail budgets and the jail maintenance budgets. And similarly, the judge has all of his budgets and then has the road budgets. Are we envisioning doing all of those in one ordinance? Or are we separately going to consider the jail fund and the road fund? Because I don't understand that right now.
Since those are really separate budgets, they have their own funding, they will be considered separately. The general fund will be considered, the road fund will be considered, and the jail fund will be considered, since those are three distinct budgets that are funded differently. That's
Okay,
what
and
I
then-
understand.
Okay, so can you let us know when those separate budgets will be on agenda? Because at this point, we're on meeting 3 to the cost of $9,000, and we haven't made it very far.
Well,
but-
okay.
And,
Go
but
on.
Madam Chair, can you get us information on the line item transfers that were affected to come up with the CARES money that totaled up to about $425?
I understand that that was several elected officials that were involved. And so
No,
I think
And
everyone,
I'm glad, but I think what I'm concerned about is how they were able to move money from one budget to another without it coming to us. Because it seems to me if we needed $425,000, we've been meeting a lot and we could have appropriated it. The idea behind the emergency budget is just in case something happens on a weekend and we can't be reached. So I'd like to know how we came up with $425,000 and how it was moved without us knowing about it.
you'll have to ask someone, your question will be forwarded to proper officials.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
J.P. Lemming.
Okay.
Brian, did I understand the county judge's road department is fixed and we can't mess with that? Did I understand? Or is that the county road tax? Which one is that?
The county road department is not funded through the same general fund that the rest of the general fund budgets are. Those are dedicated road taxes that go into that. The difference in the general and non-general is, let's say, for example, that you were to give the road department or the jail, additional monies, and they didn't end up needing it at the end of the year. That money cannot then go back into the general fund. You can only spend from the general fund out, but you cannot take from those funds to put back into the general fund. And so because those are all funded by separate funding mechanisms, there's parts of those that while you don't have to appropriate all the money that they may have available, you can't take any of that money that you don't fund to put it into another budget.
So basically it's earmarked to the county roads and county roads only.
There are certain budgets that are absolutely earmarked that can only be spent in those budgets.
Okay, thank you.
J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking with our assessor, Russell Hill, the percentage that was allotted to him did not make room for future regulatory improvements that his office is mandated to make. They're changing the years of service from when they do their survey. It's usually every 5 years, but then now it has to be 3 years. And so that 3-year period of where they have to expend the money for doing 1 to 3 years is not allotted in his budget. So I think we need to reach out to him as well and look out for future market growth in his department.
Yes, there are
Okay.
several glitches that still need to be worked out using these percentages. Are there any other questions?
Just have one.
JP Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. I thought when this was originally presented that the sentiment behind it was that if the percentage that we had allotted was not enough, then those people would be able to come and make a presentation and that we would be able to approve an increase in percentage. Is that still the case? Because I haven't heard that
Yes.
discussed tonight.
Yes, that is still the case. Yes. Thank you for making that point. JP Eva Madison.
I apologize, Madam Chair. I had one more question, and I feel sure that I know the answer because you're the chair, but I wanted to understand
Oh, I know.
how we're
I know what
divvying
it is.
up the 1% sales tax, because when we're talking about road funds being dedicated to road, I think that the court needs to understand how we're divvying up the general purpose 1% sales tax. Because to me, if we're giving the road department part of the general purpose 1% sales tax, then it should be in JP Duncan's ordinance for those purposes. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that. Can you explain how the 1% is being divvied up?
All right, the 1% sales tax, when it was passed, 40% went to the road fund, 60% went to the general fund. And so, but that's dedicated at the present time, that 40% is dedicated to the road fund and cannot be moved unless this court changes the percentage. You can do that, but I've been against it, as JP Eva Madison knows. But that is a fact, that 40%, some of that could be moved to general if it was needed. All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just understand, and we don't have to do this tonight, it's just a question. I think when we revisit JP Duncan's ordinance, we will need to understand how that road department split is showing up. If it's, I need to understand where that 40% is, if it's in his ordinance or if it's been taken out.
Oh, okay. That question, we will have an answer for that question later. All right, any other questions?
Butch Bond.
Oh, Butch,
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am. Thank you. Did have a comment to make, I think, JP Washington pretty much. I wanted to make a statement that I won't be prepared to approve anything that's drawn up until I've heard from each of the elected officials. Doesn't have to be in this meeting, that it's something they're gonna be able to operate with. And I don't believe I'd be interested in doing anything that's gonna cause us to fire county employees. And
I don't think anyone around this horseshoe is in favor of anything
No.
like that.
No, ma'am, I don't either. I know you're not. And that's basically what, was my concern. And because the statements have been put out there, the public needs to understand that's not what we're about.
No, it's not.
We're not ready to lay off employees, and we're not ready to cause any elected officials or department heads to cut anyone's pay. As far as,
Well, that's, we still have raises to consider. Those are on the agenda for October the 6th. The road department, the sheriff's department, and raises and budget controls are scheduled for October the 6th.
and I had one other comment. In the time that I have served on this court, Washington County has never had a county judge that would be in favor of reducing that 40% of that sales tax unless we were just in an emergency situation, dire need for that money. It's under the county judge's responsibility to see to it that our transportation systems stay as good as they can possibly make it. It directly, the condition of those roads directly affects not only the rural area, but the cities and the business community of a whole. Because whatever condition those roads are in, or the bridges, if they're not usable, that winds up affecting sales tax revenue directly. And I don't want to get all the way into that, but it doesn't take much, thinking on the issue or much common sense to understand if you're having to redirect traffic because a bridge is out, those individuals are burning more fuel, and we don't get the kind of sales tax revenue the same kind of way from the fuel they're having to buy as we would if they were able to buy other goods, a sales tax that brings in revenue for us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, J.P. Pond.
Can I,
Okay,
one question?
Lisa Ecke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to, when we're considering employee raises, I know everybody gets the allotted amount, but if an employee is going to receive a raise more than 5% of what he's making, I think it needs to come through personnel and for review, and not just here is a lump sum, you can pay your employees whatever you want, those that are salaried. And that is just to protect us as a court and to be transparent with the public on exactly what our processes are. We have the job assessment program, and that is to protect us on qualification, years of experience, and education. So if there's going to be a major or a large salary increase, I think it needs to come through personnel. So we remain transparent and open about that kind.
Every JP should have gotten what a 2% raise would cost and what a 3% raise would cost. I sent that out.
But this is for salaried employees, not hourly employees?
These are hourly.
Yeah, so I'm talking about salaried, and maybe perhaps a caveat to the raises. And it's just for transparency. If you're going to give somebody a raise 5% or more, I think it needs to come through personnel, so that way we can all review it and vote on it and approve it. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
That's for later discussion. All right, J.P. Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to ask if there is any way that we could all be on the same platform for this meeting. I know that there are some who cannot go to the courthouse for health reasons and others that choose to, but we're getting a lot of feedback from, we're getting a lot of public comments that they're not able to see what's going on or adequately hear what's going on. We have sometimes technical difficulties. And I just remember, when I first started my term, that one of the things that we said that we wanted to do as a court was to operate with transparency. And I just believe that we need to do everything that we could do to ensure that the public is able to be involved in our meetings the way that they need to be. So I would just ask that question, is there any way that we could all be on the same platform? I think that would make the meetings go a little more orderly and just kind of streamline the process. So is that possible?
Thank you for your comments. We'll look into that. J.P. Jenkins, did you have your hand up? Oh, I thought
J.P. Yanez. J.P. Yanez has her hand up.
Oh, okay. J.P. Yanez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, J.P. Washington. I'm seeing comments come through our chat, and I'm Brian Lester, can you comment if it's violation of FOIA? Because I just, just want to clarify that point.
I don't know enough about the chat feature and who can see it, and if it's recorded and something that somebody can get after a meeting. I would certainly say that it is less likely to violate FOIA than people having private discussions during quorum court meetings sitting next to each other. But without knowing more about that chat feature, it's really, I'm not real sure. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I know the members in the court cannot see the comments that are coming through.
We can't see
Seeing
the
no more
comments.
hands raised, two. We are ready for public comment. Mr. Lester, do we have anybody, that wants to make a public comment?
JP Harbison, I have a hand raised by Beth Koger. Let's get over here and see if I can get Ms. Koger where she can speak. Ms. Koger, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lester. My comment is directed toward what JP Butch Pond mentioned about, and I'm not sure I heard that correctly, but he said he wanted to hear from all the departments and make sure that these amounts were going to be sufficient for their budget. And then he said it doesn't have to be here. As a taxpayer, I want all the budget discussions in public so we can hear. There should not be meetings behind closed doors with the judge or anyone else. I respectfully ask that you consider that when you're continuing these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Culver. Is there any other public comment?
JP, Harbison, I have Mac Mayfield. Give me just a sec to see if I can get. Unfortunately, let me see if I can get him added to where he can speak. Mr. Mayfield, are you able to unmute where you can speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lester. I appreciate it. And thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to go back a couple of weeks and say that the national state court systems, at their judicial review, I think gave us some good advice. And I know the budgeting process is tough and detailed, but I hope that you all can find some wiggle room, if possible, to be able to adopt some of the recommendations they made. In particular, I'm thinking about the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee having some funding to be able to bring alongside some professionals for the first year to help establish that and make sure that it gets off on the right foot. Thank you very much. That's my comment.
Thank you, Matt. Do we have anyone else?
Yes, ma'am. We have Janelle Smiley. Ms. Smiley, are you able to unmute?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Janelle Smiley. I live in Fayetteville. I concur with what Max said about the CJCC funding. We spent a tremendous amount of money to obtain that report, to obtain the wisdom of the people who were experts for the benefit of the county. And it seems like it would be a shame if we didn't follow through and do any of the things they suggested. The other thing I want to say is I really appreciate the court not ramming this through. Spending some time thinking it through, discussing what the issues are. And I guess one of the questions I have is what are the provisions if we're just considering handing people percentages of a budget? What are the provisions for monitoring or people being held to some sort of accountability for how this money is spent?
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Yes, ma'am. We have David Freeman has his hand raised to speak. Mr. Freeman, are you able to unmute and speak?
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. I want to add to these comments that have been made about the criminal justice assessment, and just add that it's not just a matter of like requesting more money for spending. These suggested reforms also have a lot of potential to save money in areas by us making decisions to restructure our justice system to actually like heal and restore people rather than punishing them. There is always promise of saving money in that because of how much money we spend by incarcerating people, by policing people. And so just adding that like this assessment doesn't have to be seen as something that demands more funds from the county. It can also be something that is seen as like financially responsible, as well as like, in my opinion, very morally responsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Anyone else?
There are no more hands raised, JP Harbison.
All right. We will meet September the 29th and look at this procedure again. And I would invite all elected officials to be prepared to comment at this time. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.